Most wealth advisors never sign any clients on LinkedIn because they're constantly pitching, playing the volume game, and just hoping that somebody needs their help. Whereas I've helped wealth advisors consistently add 3 to 5 million plus to their AUM every single month just from DMs. There's no pitching involved, there's no volume game, there's no automations, there's no AI, and it's all about being a genuine person and really finding the problems that people are facing. I myself went from getting less than 10% of responses, never really booking any calls, to now getting reply rates consistently over 45%, booking 5 to 8 real sales calls every single week, and basically signing clients whenever I need just from DMs. In this video, I'm going to go through my entire Trusted Advisor DM framework, which has helped advisors add that 3 to 5 million plus to their AUM every single month. Let's get into it. So as I said, most advisors on LinkedIn, they're pitching, they're playing the volume game, they're posting content really into the void, right? It takes a long time to build up that content audience and get inbound leads. The majority of people never get any inbound leads. As a result, they can't convert conversations into clients, and they're really just hoping that somebody wants their help. This basically results in them not booking any calls. They're not signing any clients. They're relying on other methods of ineffective outreach like cold calling or cold emailing. Can't use cold outreach consistently, right? And if we're going a layer deeper than that, that means that they're now relying on luck to grow their business, right? They may go out and get lucky here and there with some of the outreach they're doing. They may get some luck from the in-person events that they're doing. God forbid, maybe they're doing door knocking. Again, right, like in general, what they're doing now is just relying on luck, or if they're getting a referral here and there, and they aren't really having a true lever to use cold outreach to grow their business, right? And even deeper than that, most of the advisors I talk to have underlying reason why they want to get clients as an advisor, right? Whether that's, building their practice as big as possible and, achieving awards, achieving recognition, right? For some people, it's just having that balance, right? Being able to spend time with their family, right? Having that lifestyle where they can basically work whenever they want. They're having a genuine, true, massive impact on the lives of the people that they're working with. But, if you don't really have a method to consistently grow clients, then they aren't able to reach those goals. LinkedIn is the single best place to sign clients as an advisor, but sadly, like over 95% of advisors have never gotten a single client from LinkedIn. And even if they have, it's not really consistent. It's just something they've gotten lucky with here and there. And that's what my Trusted Advisor DM framework basically breaks down and goes a layer deeper to actually be able to do that consistently. In terms of me, myself, I played the volume game on LinkedIn for over 6 months, and I thought that I would eventually find the perfect DM script that would basically book me calls whenever I wanted. Side note, that never happened, obviously. I only really book calls out of luck if I came across someone that was really, really desperate, and most of the time, those aren't the highest quality leads. And again, right, like you don't really have a relationship with that person who you just got lucky with, so most of the time, they're not even gonna keep on that call, and it's a low chance they could become a client eventually. And there was no real consistency to my strategy. Whereas now, and since then, I've went all in on the relationship and behavioral psychology side of doing DMs on LinkedIn, right? What that means is being able to actually build a relationship where you have trust with the prospect, right? Prospect knows that you care about them. It all starts from your mindset, which I'm going to get into. But eventually I started booking 5 to 8 sales calls every single week. I've helped multiple wealth advisors consistently add AUM to their business every single month and every single week. And I actively work with over 20 advisors at one time, which is, growing all the time as well. So just to break down what the actual strategy looks like, right? Before, this is a message that I actually got from an advisor, which is funny considering the business that I'm in. But you can see here, right? Like with this message, it's long, it's pitchy, it's assuming that the advisor can help without knowing anything about me or my situation, right? Like they're asking if investing in your company's employee stock purchase plan alternatives. They're really just throwing out anything that they do to see if they can get me to, be interested. And they're immediately offering a call and, offering for me to get on a chat with someone that I don't know and that I don't have any relationship with. And it's not personalized or relevant at all, right? Like it just says, working with clients in your industry. I mean, they haven't really named my industry. I don't even know what most people would probably name my industry. And so it really just depends on being luck-based, right? You probably sent this message out to, this is an in-mail, so this isn't even a connection request message or a DM. So probably send it out to the maximum 150 that he could. And it's all just based on luck, right? Hopefully somebody sees this and is in a really desperate situation. It also just doesn't stand out, right? Like most advisors are doing some type of outreach strategy like this. It may be a little bit better, God forbid it's a little bit worse, but overall it's just very luck-based, right? Whereas what we do in our strategy is focus on starting real conversations, right? So you can see here in this initial outreach method, right? So, he reaches out, just has a normal casual greeting, brings up that, the advisor also has a client at Meta, right? So they're bringing up the profession from the very start just to gain clarity, right? The biggest thing you'll notice here is that it's very casual tonality, right? Advisors that treat messages the way they would with their friends, right? That's what's going to get prospects actually interested in wanting to engage, right? Whereas people who are always overly formal every time they're DMing, they're going to see a lot lower reply rates in conversations. You can see it actually starts a conversation where the prospect resonates with this advisor, right? They actually start talking about, obviously the personal side of things, being from the Bay Area, coffee recommendations, stuff like that. So overall, right, like it doesn't assume that the advisor can help. There's no pitch. There's not even any mention of the financial aspect, right? But at the same time, they are bringing up the profession so you can dig deeper into that side of the prospect's life. And as a result, if we go, further in the conversation, you can see here, this is a point much later on where, after having some of that back and forth, the prospect mentioned that they do rough planning when it comes to their RSUs. And so that eventually opens up an opportunity because now we have actual insight, right? The advisor has real insight from the prospect saying themselves the problem that they're facing, right? It's not just making an assumption or making a pitch. And then eventually the advisor is now able to offer a call, right? Because they are eventually able to bridge the gap between, I've worked with a client at your exact company, help them do X, Y, and Z thing, right? You've already told me that you have X, Y, and Z problem. And so we can bridge that gap now. Even then, right? Like it's not in this screenshot, but there's no pitch, right? All the advisor does is offers to show them how they've helped another client with it. So this is basically a conversation strategy that's all based in relationships, right? It books in a real discovery call, which is a problem that I hear a lot of advisors talk about. Even if they are getting calls, the prospects aren't interested. They're just kind of fact finders, so to say. They're just building a connection, right? They're not really going to move to the next step, which is the complete opposite of what we want to focus on, right? The only metric that I track for the advisors I work with is how much they're actually adding to their AUM and how many clients that they're adding. Nothing else really matters, right? And so with this strategy, you can see it also feels a lot better. It's actually a fun outreach to do. You're not just going out and trying to pitch, copy paste the same message over and over again. So advisors started to enjoy doing this outreach, which makes it even better. So overall, right, the benefit of doing this strategy from a high level over pitching / spamming is that you'll easily get reply rates to 40 to 50%. Pretty much every single advisor I've ever worked with that actually learns the strategy is able to hit that very easily. You'll talk to prospects that have real, genuine interest in your business and becoming a client. You can target higher net worth, ideal prospects only, right, which is the main focus for most of the advisors I work with. You're no longer relying on luck. There's an actual strategy to, be able to grow and, add clients from LinkedIn. You're going to stand out from all other advisors, right? Most advisors are obviously doing this type of strategy over here. And so you're definitely going to stand out, and that gets us a lot of results as well. You're not going to feel pitchy and salesy. That's a really important part of it, right? Like you want to be in the business for the long term. You want to do outreach that you're actually going to enjoy. And this is something that does that. And then you're going to build genuine relationships and trust, right? It gives you the opportunity to truly help people, right? You're not just going across pitching. And that's something that makes a massive impact. Overall, right, this consistently allows the advisors I work with to add 2 to 3 ideal prospects and their target AUM every single month directly from DMs without ever having to pitch or play the volume game, right? And that's really the overarching theme. And in terms of like why I do this, right? Why this aligns with who I am as a person, like the majority of people can get life-changing help from an advisor, right? I'm pretty sure most wealth advisors would agree with me there, but they never get the opportunity because the industry is now perceived as a lot of pitchy salesmen that are just selling products here and there. And as a result of that, most advisors who do just genuinely want to help, they never get the opportunity to get prospects to realize that, right? Even if the advisors are relationship first at their core, when they're talking to prospects, it just comes across as someone who's pitching and selling, right? That's the real disconnect that I help advisors bridge. I always use a statement that I want to help you treat your prospects the same way that you treat your clients while still being able to be efficient and effective with your time so that you're able to convert those prospects into clients, right? All of this comes from building trust, real relationships, and finding the true underlying problems that the prospects are facing to get that life-changing support that they need. And in the end, right, like nobody works with an advisor to just crunch numbers, right? I'm pretty sure almost every single wealth advisor would agree with me there. It's really about the personal relationship with somebody who they know will have their best interest at heart every single time. And that's what I want to enable more of by being able to help advisors implement this strategy on their own. And that's really what everything is rooted in at its core. So I wanted to break that down as well, just so you know where my alignment is with this. And it's overall to really change that perception of the industry and help advisors not just, be able to get shut down every single time they talk to a prospect. So in terms of like how this strategy actually gets results, right? So here are some of the select results from advisors I've worked with, right? Anonymized for the purpose of showing their AUM, but I have some names down here as well. Overall, right, you can see there's high net worth advisor at a client at, 5 million for one client. This tech advisor from San Francisco added 10 million to his AUM in just 3 months. And obviously just a lot of results here as well. So physician clients that this medical focused advisor has, he added 3 clients in, just 4 months of working with me. And then just down here, some other guys, 50% acceptance rate, 45% replies, 3 to 5 calls a week, right? Really seeing growth here from not having any calls to consistently getting, 2 to 3 calls every single week. And when I say calls, it's obviously true discovery calls, not just people picking up the phone willing to chat. Again, right, this is an advisor who was very young and still started booking consistent discovery calls. Here are some of the people that gave testimonials on my LinkedIn that I have to do a much better job of collecting, which I will. Obviously, Greg here got a lot of results, was able to consistently book ideal appointments on LinkedIn every single week. And Jerry here as well gave some great feedback on how it's really about relationship building, one-on-one coaching, which is everything that I'll get into, but more so on the strategy side, right? It's all specific for wealth advisors. In terms of the actual results, right? So like some of the current clients that I'm working with, even though it's early on, right? Chris got his first ever client from LinkedIn. He has 2 more directly in his pipeline that he's going to onboard soon. Brandon got his first ever client from LinkedIn. He's consistently at over 40% reply rates, dozens of genuine conversations every single week. Dean consistently over 50% in his reply rates, multiple calls every single week. He's getting in-person meetings from LinkedIn. He's playing golf with his prospects. He's, meeting them to run. He's a big runner, and he got his first ever client from DMs as well. Justin, who is very, very new and working with me, is already at a 50% reply rate in his first 2 weeks. He's booked more discovery calls 2 months in with ideal prospects than he ever has before in, working with anyone else on LinkedIn. And he focuses specifically on residents and physicians, so obviously a pretty high value niche for him. And here are just like some firms to really show you that the strategy obviously works, right? Like, if you're thinking that it's not going to work for you specifically, or if it's not compliant, since everything is relationship based, we're not pitching or selling anything. It's compliant with literally every single firm. These are some of the firms that I've worked with here, just so you can see that as well. So the strategy is very effective in helping people actually add AUM consistently. So I just wanted to break that down as well. Now moving into how the Trusted Advisor DM framework actually works, right? So there's 3 crucial aspects that I want to highlight that it really stems from being able to make this strategy have an impact. The first step is having a deep understanding of your ICP. After that, you want to use the DM strategy as based in real relationships, which is really the core element of it. And third is a really, really important step that most advisors struggle with and takes time to learn, which is finding the underlying problems that prospects are facing by asking the right question. So instead of just telling prospects your services or telling them what you can help them with, you help them realize on their own, okay, these are the problems I'm facing, and then you bridge that to the solution that you provide. So going more in depth here, right, when I say deep ICP understanding, the first thing I do with any advisor I work with who wants to implement this strategy is getting as granular as possible on the clients that we're going after, right? And the reason we do that is a lot of advisors say, oh, well, I want to work with anybody that I can help, which is great. I totally agree. But on LinkedIn specifically, you want to pick a niche, because when you're talking to a potential prospect, they're going to be able to tell whether you really speak their language or not, right? They're going to be able to tell whether you know their specific problems, and that comes across in the conversation. And so the first step is just the basic details about the ICP, right? Their demographics, the age, location, industry, profession. There's a lot of different ways that you can split up your ICP. But something that's really important that a lot of people don't realize, which our strategy really allows for, is the personality fit, right? Like, who are the types of people that you enjoy working with the most? And on the back of that, who can you help the most, right? Since we're having real conversations, it's not just people that you're talking to for the first time once they get on the phone, you can really narrow down all of these personality and benefit factors as well. So that's really the first step that you want to understand before you can get into doing anything else. Secondly is the pains, right? Like when you pick a niche, you want to really know what are the underlying problems that pretty much everybody in this niche faces that I can talk about when I'm having these conversations, right? Secondly, why is this urgent? Why is this something that they need to solve right now rather than something that they can worry about 10 to 20 years down the line, right? I'm sure as an advisor, if you've tried to talk to prospects before, they say, yeah, I'll get around to it eventually, something, right? But there's a reason why you're talking to them now. There's a reason why it is something that's urgent that they're going to miss out on if they don't take care of it right now. Thirdly, what problems are specific to their life stage, to their industry, to their profession, right? Like, let's say you have somebody in the tech niche, as I showed you a little bit earlier, focusing on RSUs, focusing on equity compensation. That's a big topic that a lot of people in the tech niche face. And if you have a complex understanding of that, that can come across in your conversations. Doesn't just have to be industry based, doesn't just have to be profession based. It can be based on their life stage, any other demographic factor, but you have to have a deep understanding of the general problems that even though this specific person may not be facing right now, through your questions, you can find out what it is that they are facing. Thirdly, and this is something that I love talking about, this is language, right? And by language, what I really mean is when you're talking to somebody, it's very easy for them to tell whether you really know their world or not, right? There's maybe specific phrases that they use, specific terminology, specific topics that people that, the only people that talk about that are people that are in their industry, right? And how can you bring across that fact that you really know their situation, right? That's something that's super crucial here. Fourthly is the ideal situation. What are their long-term goals? What do they actually want out of their life, eventually, right? What can you bridge the gap from this is their current state to this is the ideal state that they want to be in 20 years from now, or maybe even right now, maybe even in a year, right? Like what is it that they want their lifestyle to look like? That's something that you also want to create as part of your ICP. So overall, these are some of the biggest factors that you want to have when you have, want to understand your ICP, and it's going to make the biggest difference. So that's the first crucial element of the trusted advisor DM framework. Secondly is a relationship-based DM strategy, right? So I showed you this example a little bit earlier, but the way that this works is you want to start a genuine conversation, right? Like most people want to start the conversation with immediately trying to book a call. Whereas on LinkedIn now, people don't want to just talk to everybody, right? Like they're going to talk to people who they know have their best interests at heart, who have an understanding of, type of person that they are. So you start that genuine conversation and people will engage with you if you come across casual enough, right? The second step is to then just gain clarity into their life, whether that's on the personal side, the professional side, whatever the case may be. The whole point of building a relationship is to show that you're trying to understand them, right? Not just making assumptions. Third, and a step that's really crucial, is referencing your current clients to build credibility, right? Whereas if you're just kind of trying to pitch or trying to ask questions, people may be like, oh, what exactly is the point of you asking me this question, right? If you're referencing your current clients, it shows that, you already have an understanding of the niche. You're just building more connections. You're trying to understand more. It may even come across like you're trying to learn, right? Which is in the end what you're trying to do here. You're just trying to learn more about the prospect. And I'll even preface this by, with the relationship, something that I've really focused on, on the mindset side with every advisor I work with, is not coming across every conversation just wanting to pitch and sell, right? That's something that really hurts pretty much anybody that does that. You want to come across a conversation having all of this genuinely at your core, right? It's not like just a trick or just a facade that you're putting on. It's really about embracing all aspects of being relationship first and being genuine. So that's a crucial element as well. You can see here with these examples, right? This is the initial outreach example that I showed you earlier, mentioning the profession from the start, right? Talking about the different types of stuff, product that the person's working on, whatever the case may be, bringing up that personal side of the personal side of their life and blending that into the conversation as well. Overall, it just starts good banter, some good back and forth, right? You can bring up the fact that there's a client in the same company, right? You can show that you resonate with them, show that you understand their industry and their life stage, as I talked about earlier. That's to come up in the conversation. You want to simply gain insight into their current role, right? Continue the personal conversation. So you can see based on the type of person that they are, you can ask questions based on their posts, right? And just overall show that you want to really understand where they're at. This is all a crucial element. It's all just relationship building, right? The same way that you would in person, now you're translating that into LinkedIn. I'll preface by saying that this all has to be very casual. You can't come across pitchy. You can't come across like a guy that's trying to sell. You can't come across as somebody who's very professional in suit and tie. The whole conversation, the tonality is almost more important than the actual content of the topic that you're talking about. And in the end, it shows prospects that you really care, right? It doesn't assume that you can help them before knowing them at all. And it creates some genuine intrigue and a strong personal connection with every single prospect. And that has a massive impact, right? So this is the second true element of the Trusted Advisor DM framework. It's really leaning into all elements of the relationship as possible, right? And I'll also say that there's no one exact way that every single conversation is going to go. Like there is a guideline in terms of doing it in these steps, but in the end, every single conversation is going to be different. And the more you approach it with a genuine mindset of just wanting to build a relationship, the better it's going to be for you in the long term. Now, the step that actually comes to converting these prospects into clients is finding the problems that they're facing, right? This stems from having that deep ICP understanding of their pain points, as I mentioned earlier, right? You want to use other clients to bring it up subtly, right? Bring up that their industry, as I mentioned here, like this is something that this advisor mentioned about RSUs, and that opens up that door as well. Then eventually you want to contextualize it to the prospect, specific problems that they're facing in this current stage. The way that we do that here, right, is like hinting at pain points. So here, right, like mentioning that, how the RSU's been straightforward, like with vesting. Vesting is obviously a massive topic that advisors talk about when it comes to RSUs, right? There can be a lot of tax implications there. And so that's something that they bring up very subtly without actually pitching, without, directly saying that they want to bring them on as a client. Eventually that opens up a lot of doors because here the advisor says like there's lots of layers, nothing urgent, but there is still an opportunity. And so you want to use what the person tells you, what the prospect's telling you, and keep asking questions so you can gain more clarity, right? And as a result of that questioning, you can understand the problems that they're having. So here the the prospect eventually says that it's mostly just internal resources and rough planning, right? Eventually that leads to a very specific pain point. So when someone says rough planning as an advisor, you want to dive deeper into that. What exactly do you mean by rough planning, right? Are there any surprises with taxes, etc.? And so that opens up knowledge that shows that you have credibility in their space. And eventually you ask those specific questions about pain points by using what they're giving you, where now you're able to offer help casually without being pitchy, without being needy, right? You're just maintaining your authority and offering a discussion based on the credibility that you've already built, right? And eventually this person books in a call because the advisor shows that he understands the person's niche. He knows the problems that they're facing. He's not pitching them. He's building an actual relationship. He actually cares. All of these factors come together, but none of it works without finding real problems, right? That's how they're able to get on the call. And now the advisor directly knows the topic they're going to talk about is RSUs. The topic they're going to talk about is equity compensation that this person is clearly interested in fixing. And so that's a really crucial element of this. So the analogy that I'm going to use to talk about the framework from a generic perspective is grow the plant, right? I use this a lot in my trainings because it really shows what the strategy is all about, right? Most advisors, when you come across and you're pitching someone from the very beginning, you don't know that person at all. Maybe they accepted your connection request and that's about it, right? You have no relationship with them. This plant represents the level of the relationship, right? You have no relationship and you're trying to, pluck this plant out of the ground when it's, just this tiny. Whereas what we do is we're kind of watering and helping grow the plant as it goes along the stages, right? And so, you can see here, some of the conversations may be long, but in the end, when you're actually getting clients, it becomes very worth it to focus on those relationships because not only are you going to get more results, you're going to have more fun doing it. You're going to actually enjoy the type of conversations that you're having. You're not going to feel like you're just pitching or you're a salesman, right? And so in the end, the grow the plant analogy really shows that we're trying to water the plant, grow the relationship over time, and find the real problems that prospects are facing rather than just trying to pluck the plant out of the ground from the very beginning. So this is really what the strategy is about. It's about taking time, right? Letting the conversation develop. Some conversations are going to be quick and convert easily. Some are going to take longer, right? I have advisors, like I said, who play golf with their prospects every weekend before they become a client. But in the end, that's why we generally focus on higher value clients, those ideal clients. You only have to bring on a couple every single month to really grow your AUM a lot, right? And so that's overall the way that the strategy works. So this is just a quick breakdown, right? The first three main crucial elements of how the Trusted Advisor GM framework works. And so now moving into how the system actually leads to getting results, right? What are the types of results that you can expect when you're doing something like this? So I'll break it down with numbers, right? Because as I said, everything is about building an actual system that you can consistently add clients and grow your AUM with forever, right? That's my entire focus. And so here, the way that we do things is we send blank connection requests, right? If you're putting a message in your connection request, it tells the prospect immediately that your goal is just to pitch and sell them, which if you're pitching and selling, then that's fine, right? You can go ahead and do that. But we don't want to do that. We want to actually build a relationship. We want to have a conversation. And so if you're putting a message in the connection request, you're not really giving yourself a chance to do that. Our acceptance rates are much higher when you're sending blank requests because it doesn't come across salesy. So you have 200 connection requests per week. I tell every single advisor to max that out because although we're not playing the volume game, you still want to use all of your at-bats, right? You still want to have the opportunity to have as many genuine conversations as possible. This 30% acceptance rate number is actually kind of on the lower side. Most people see anywhere from 40 to 50%, right? But let's say you're getting 30%. That's 60 connections in, throughout the entire week. Those 60 connections are everyone that we're messaging. So I tell every advisor, message anyone that accepts, right? You can see here, like 50% reply rate sounds high to the majority of people. Literally every single person I've worked with has gotten to a 40 to 50% reply rate. So you're having about 30 conversations during the duration of that week. Those 30 conversations can easily convert to 5 calls every week, right? In those 30 conversations, maybe some prospects die off. Some people already have an advisor. Some people don't have really have a problem that you're able to identify. But out of those 30, it's pretty easy to find 5 people that really have interest, really need help. And maybe it's 3 people, right? But it's still more than 1 or more than 0 because there's 30 real conversations. It's not just blasting out those 30 messages and not having a back and forth, right? And so 5 calls a week, that's 20 calls throughout the duration of the entire month, right? It could be more, it could be a little bit less. But at minimum, for people that I'm working with, if you're booking calls with prospects who know who you are, they have a relationship, they're truly interested in your service because you found a problem that they're facing. It's not just someone looking to connect or, fact finders that people throw around in this industry. It's real calls. And that can very easily become, at least 1 new client, if not a lot more. But that's just to show how people are able to get results from the strategy. Most advisors are great with people in person. So I imagine if you're booking 20 discovery calls every single month, then you're going to be able to convert maybe 50% of those at least, maybe a lot more. That's how your AUM can really explode from using this relationship first strategy. This is just a number from originally like the average AUM that advisors I work with did, right? They usually charge a 1% fee. The average client used to be around $1 million. It's actually a little bit higher now. But that's kind of how the strategy is able to work out there. And obviously with the business, it's a lot of recurring revenue over the duration that the client works with you. But just comparing this to most advisors, right? Like most advisors see a less than 10% reply rate on LinkedIn. They're very scarcely getting calls, maybe 1 to 2 a week. And even if they are getting calls, it's really not qualified calls, right? It's more of just people looking to connect or fact finders, as I said before. And in the end, like, they're not true discovery calls to prospects who are interested and have that relationship, right? They're just people who kind of, man, if they are, like, it's probably just based on luck. It's not really consistently getting in front of interested prospects because it's not a system, as I talked about, right? It's not a system to actually grow the plan and, eventually create that interest. It's really just luck based. Maybe somebody has a major problem that you can solve. And so that's really what most advisors face. They're never really getting clients, and it's really just volume and luck based. And that's exactly what we're not trying to do with this. We're having a real system that consistently gets results as you're able to learn the strategy. So the overall benefits, right, just to like recap a little bit, it's a streamlined strategy instead of praying for luck. It builds trust over time and it compounds, right? With, like I said, with the growing the plant analogy, it shows prospects that you're carrying and you build that trust over a period of time. It's always fully compliant because we're never pitching, we're never spamming anybody, we're never selling anything, right? It feels 100 times better than pitching. It's really just about helping people. As I said in my mission statement originally, it's about showing people that their life can actually be very, very different. But if they already knew that problem on their own, then they would have gone out and solved it, right? So we have to help them realize the problem that they're having, and doing that through a relationship feels so much better. We're aligning with how ideal high net worth clients want to work. That's why this, works out so well for the advisors I work with in that niche. It's all relationship based, right? It's not going to be someone that, no one's going to hand you $10 million after one DM that you sent them, unless they're in a very desperate situation where, again, going back to the point of luck, right? If you want a real strategy, you have to build relationships consistently with those high net worth clients. And as a result, they're going to be interested in seeing that, okay, this person actually cares about me. They know my world. They know my problems. And hopefully after you talk to them, you're able to ask questions which help them realize on their own, these are the problems I'm facing, and this is how X, Y, and Z advisor can help me solve them, right? And so overall, it just becomes a consistent lever to pull forever in order to grow your AUM, right? Like, it's not ever relying on luck. It's just a real strategy that you can repeat over and over again by building relationships, finding problems, and growing your practice basically whenever you want. So in terms of the funnel, right? Like, as I said before, we talk about funnel on the content side a lot. In the DMs, it's really the same thing, right? You're gonna have a bigger audience at the top when you're just building trust. That may be just making sure you're optimizing your profile, sending out your connection request. That's the very start of it. As you go down the funnel, it becomes a smaller audience, but that's why we only onboard a few clients every month, right? Because that's what we need, just a few ideal clients. Start the conversations here. You're having some conversations, and then you eventually cultivate real long-term relationships. Some may be quicker than others, but you have real relationships with those prospects. And at the bottom of the funnel is people that you're actually signing on as clients. And so that's how it eventually works into a real system that you can consistently use as a lever to grow your business. And so overall here, right, like when we go to the implementation, right? And the first step, as I was talking about, like, how do you now actually do this? Everything I talked about, right? You see the strategy can be effective. How do you actually implement this on your own, right? The first step that I'll say is you want to understand the mindset. You don't want to approach every conversation wanting to sell. You want to genuinely build relationships and not have any type of expectation, right? It's something that most people don't do, and most people don't even agree with it. But you see so much more results because you're not expecting every single person to become a client and give you something. Staying emotionally centered and detaching from the outcome is a crucial element in the DMs, right? It's something that not enough people talk about. But when you're reactive to every single positive or negative conversation that's happening, you're constantly going off your emotional center, and that's going to come across in your tonality, right? You want to be detached from the outcome. You're going to be fine either way. Whether this person becomes a client or not, you're going to be okay. And that's a crucial element of just being laid back and casual in your messaging and your relationships that you're building. In order to actually use the framework, right? Like, I'll give you some advice on how to actually get this started. So you want to start with going to ChatGPT, going into Claude, whatever AI you want to use. I would recommend using the voice feature and just talking about your ideal client in as much depth as possible, right? So come dump every single thing that you know about them, their demographics, their pain points, their fears, everything else that relates to that. Use their language, right? Show that you truly understand them and the situation that they're in. And that's something that you just want to recap and get a nice summary of when you're in ChatGPT and Claude, so you have that to reference every single time. From there, start genuine conversation. So as I talked about in this part of the framework, right, like you want to have that natural back and forth. You want to start the conversation that's not just you pitching and asking for a call. That's a crucial element of it. What's going to happen is you're going to stand out from all the other DMs that other advisors are sending, right? You're not pitching, you're not spamming. Every DM should be hyper specific and very relevant to each individual prospect, right? So you're not just going across and sending the same template to everybody. You're actually being specific and relevant to that individual person. And again, right, you want to be a real person. You want to be a human. Like, if we go back to the very beginning of the message that, this advisor sent me, it just sounds like a robot. Like, this could very easily be an AI message that someone just generated. And in reality, the reason that this strategy is so effective to learn right now is because as AI becomes, more and more prevalent, Prospects are going to work with the advisors they have the strongest relationship with, right? As I said before, nobody works with an advisor just to crunch numbers. And so even if there are AI tools that can do planning, can do the financial side of things, that AI is not going to give the person the permission to live the life the way they want to live, right? That's all based on relationships. And as everyone else tries to use AI to make their life easier and, send out really bad messages on LinkedIn, being a real person, using that tonality, standing out from that has a massive impact. And we've already seen the impact of that with all the clients I've worked with. And so eventually, right, you want to find problems. So you want to use your deep understanding of your ICP, as I said, build rapport and trust to help them open up, right? Like you want to use a rapport that you've built to ask questions, which really gets them to talk to you a little bit more. And eventually you're never really pitching, you're just offering help, right? So as I told you before, that advisor never pitched a call. The advisor just said, I'm open to talking about it if it's something that you're interested in, right? I've helped X, Y, and Z person with it from X, Y, and Z company. Seems like you're in a similar situation, right? So there's not really any pitching involved. It's all really just about offering help. And so overall, right, like these are the main elements of actually using the frameworks if I had to really boil it down into a very simple format. And again, right, like you want to test and refine. So it's not an easy thing to do at all, right? That's obviously why I'm in business, but that's also why it works, right? Anything that's easy, like all the other things that advisors are doing, whether that's buying leads, pitching, sending out the same template and message over and over again, using automations, trying to use AI, whatever the case may be, none of those things work. And that's why it's easy to do, right? All those things are very, very easy. Any single person in the world can pick them up and do it, but that's why you don't get any results from it, right? This strategy is relationship first. It's actually based in science. It's something that I've consistently seen work for literally every single advisor that I've ever worked with. And that's why it works, right? It takes time to learn, right? So you want to iterate based on what's working. As you're having conversations, you want to see which topics are really resonating with your ICP, right? Which types of conversations, which types of questions are actually resonating. But keep in mind that every single conversation is going to be different. Don't try to force every conversation down the same path. Let it go where it goes, let it flow, and have a real conversation as if you're talking to that person in real life. And that's what's going to help you actually convert, right? But it does take time to learn. Again, going back to the mindset side of things, don't be thinking that you're going to convert at the first time you go ahead and try this. It takes time to be able to do that. Thirdly, you want to constantly update your understanding of your ICP. So as you add clients, you want to learn from them. What were their pains? What were their fears? What were the factors that motivated them to work with an advisor, right? Go back to your existing book of business. Think about how they came and worked with you. What were their problems and pains, right? You want to constantly be updating your understanding of your ICP, and that's your real moat, right? Like if you want to talk about what's going to differentiate you from other advisors, saying that you provide holistic tax planning or holistic financial advice to high earners, that's not a niche, right? A niche is something that actually differentiates who you are as an advisor and as a person from every single other person, right? Every single other advisor. You want to use your ICP understanding to your advantage, and that's a crucial element of this. So overall, that's where we're at with the strategy, and that's the three main elements of implementing it. So as I said, hopefully that strategy made a lot of sense, but it's not the easiest thing to implement, right? I talked about the advisors that I worked with a little bit before, and everything that I do is really focused on having specific one-on-one feedback. Every single advisor I work with gets advice from me on the conversations they're having. We get on one-on-one calls to make sure that we're breaking down those conversations and actually progressing and moving them forward. And my goal is not just to tell people what to do, not to give them a template, not to run some automation or AI, as you can imagine. It's based on actually giving them the skill set required to do this consistently over time, right? I talked in the beginning how every advisor has some motivation for why they even want to add clients in the first place, whether that's just achieving as much success as possible, whether that's achieving lifestyle balance and being able to spend time with their family, really having that consistent lever to grow their business without having to pay or rely on anybody for the rest of their life. That's what's going to help them get to that goal, right? Not being able to, not just paying a lead gen agency or trying to look for quick wins here and there or relying on a luck strategy, right? It's a real consistent lever to pull that if you do X, Y, and Z inputs, you're going to see these results come out the other end, right? That's exactly what I want to deliver to every single advisor that I work with. I'm at one point, at any point, basically working with around 20 advisors, but that number is constantly growing. And so if you're interested in having that conversation to see if you're a fit to potentially work with me, you can shoot me a message on LinkedIn, or you can just book a call directly in through my Calendly that's going to be linked below. But overall, I hope you learned something from this video. I hope you have some actionable tips to go ahead and use in your LinkedIn DM outreach. But I definitely recommend really leaning into the relationship side of things and thinking about what it is that makes you even want to talk to prospects in the first place, right? Think about your mindset and then approach people with that genuine caring mindset, and that's going to make all the difference. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.